The alien Princess Zylara stood tall on the raised platform, her crystalline skin reflecting the light of 3 moons that hung in the sky above the ceremonial grounds. Her long silver hair flowed down to her waist, adorned with glowing blue gems that matched her piercing eyes. She surveyed the line of human soldiers who stood at attention before her, each one trying to maintain composure under her intense gaze. The annual selection ceremony was a tradition that dated back to when the Kylorians first made contact with Earth 50 years ago. What began as a tense standoff between 2 species evolved into an alliance of necessity. The Kylorians needed human adaptability and resilience, while humans needed Kylorian technology to save their dying planet. Each year an exchange took place where select humans would serve in the royal courts of Kyloria, and in return the aliens would share more of their advanced knowledge. Lieutenant Amy Walsh shifted uncomfortably in her formal military uniform. The 28-year-old soldier had volunteered for this mission, never expecting to be standing before actual royalty. The Earth United Forces had briefed her team extensively, but nothing prepared them for the sheer otherworldliness of Kyloria with its floating cities and crystalline architecture. Amy glanced at her fellow soldiers standing in the line. Lily Chen stood to her left, her face a mask of calm. Despite the strange situation, Samantha Brooks and Kate Miller were further down the line along with several male soldiers, including the young Private Ryan Ellis, who had just celebrated his 20th birthday before deployment. Commander Linda Taylor stood at the end of the line, her experienced eyes watching everything. With careful attention, Zylara moved along the line, studying each human with calculated precision. Her 7-foot frame towered over even the tallest soldiers, her 4-fingered hand occasionally reaching out to touch a shoulder or face, assessing something only she could perceive. Amy tried to keep her breathing steady as the princess approached. From the high seats surrounding the platform, the Kylorian court watched with interest. Amy could feel hundreds of alien eyes upon her, their whispers creating a strange harmonic hum that seemed to vibrate through her bones. The air smelled of exotic spices and the strange metallic scent that all Kylorians seemed to emit. Princess Zylara stopped directly in front of Private Ellis, her expression unreadable as she tilted her head, studying him with intensity that made even the stoic Commander Taylor shift nervously nearby. The princess circled the young man once, twice, then a 3rd time before returning to face him directly. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. The crowd grew silent. Even the strange insects that populated this alien world seemed to pause their nighttime chorus. Everyone waited for the princess to speak. Her choice would determine which human would spend the next Earth year in the royal palace learning Kylorian secrets to take back to humanity. What happened next shocked everyone. Princess Zylara extended her arm, her long, elegant finger pointing directly at Private Ellis. The young human soldier stood frozen, his eyes widening slightly as the full weight of what was happening settled upon him. The princess spoke, her voice like chimes in the wind, yet somehow powerful enough to reach every corner of the ceremonial grounds. "I choose him." Whispers erupted throughout the court. Some of the elder Kylorians rose from their seats in apparent protest, but the princess raised her hand, silencing them immediately. Amy glanced at Commander Taylor, whose face betrayed a mixture of relief and concern. Private Ellis was the youngest, least experienced member of their team, as per tradition. Private Ellis stepped forward, bowing awkwardly as he'd been taught during their briefings. Princess Zylara placed a crystalline circlet upon his head, marking him as her chosen one for the cycle. He would now have access to knowledge no other human had been granted before. The ceremony concluded with a feast where humans and Kylorians sat at separate tables. The humans ate specially prepared food that would not poison their systems, while watching the Kylorians consume glowing liquids and crystalline fruits. Amy noticed how the elder Kylorians kept glancing at Ellis with what seemed like suspicion, while the princess sat with perfect posture at the head table, occasionally looking toward the young private with an unreadable expression. Later that night, as the humans were escorted back to their quarters in the embassy section of the royal city, Amy found herself walking beside Commander Taylor. "Something feels off about this selection," Taylor whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of their footsteps on the crystal pathways. "Ellis has no special training, no diplomatic experience. Why would she choose him over more qualified candidates? Amy had been wondering. The same thing, but kept her thoughts to herself. The Kylorians had always been mysterious about their selection criteria. In previous years they had chosen experienced diplomats or scientists. This was the first time they had selected someone so junior in their shared quarters. Ellis sat on the edge of his bed staring at the circlet in his hands. He had removed it after the ceremony but kept touching it as if drawn to its strange energy. "How do you feel?" Amy asked, sitting across from him. "Strange," he replied. His young face looked pale in the blue light that filtered through the translucent walls of their quarters. "Like something is happening in my head. Images, formulas. Knowledge I don't understand yet. Does it hurt?" Amy was concerned, remembering stories of previous selectees who had struggled with the alien information. Transfer. Ellis shook his head slowly. "No, but it's overwhelming, like trying to drink from a waterfall." He looked up at her with confusion. "I think she chose me for a reason, beyond the official exchange. Something she couldn't say openly." Before Amy could respond, a soft chime indicated someone at their door. It slid open to reveal Princess Zylara herself, standing without her royal guards. The humans immediately stood at attention, surprised by the unexpected visit. The princess spoke softly, her voice much more gentle than during the ceremony. "You must come with me now, Private Ellis. There is little time." She glanced at Amy. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Lieutenant Walsh, you may accompany us. Your commander must not know." Amy hesitated, knowing that following an alien royal without authorization went against every protocol. But something in the princess' eyes convinced her this was important. "Where are we going?" Ellis asked as they followed the princess down a hidden corridor that Amy hadn't noticed before. "To show you the truth," Zylara replied, her voice somber. "The real reason our people's alliance exists. The secret my father, the king, has kept for 50 years. They descended deeper into the crystal city, moving through passages that seemed to glow with internal light. The princess moved with silent grace, while the humans struggled to keep up. Amy kept one hand near her concealed sidearm, not entirely trusting this strange turn of events. Finally, they reached a sealed door unlike any other in the palace. It appeared to be made of actual metal rather than the crystal that dominated Kylorian architecture. Zylara placed her palm against it and it slid open. With a hiss of escaping air, what they saw inside would change everything. The room beyond the metal door contained rows upon rows of stasis pods. Each pod held a sleeping Kylorian, their crystalline skin dulled and cracked with what appeared to be a disease. Amy and Ellis followed Princess Zylara as she walked slowly. Between the rows, her fingers trailing along the surfaces of the pods with familiar sadness. "These are my people," Zylara said, her voice hollow. "The truth my father hides from your leaders. The real reason we made contact with Earth." She stopped at a particular pod where a young Kylorian child lay motionless. "We are dying. Our genetic structure is breaking down after millennia of manipulation." Ellis stepped closer to one of the pods, his eyes wide with shock. "How many?" "Over 10,000 in this facility alone," Zylara replied. "And millions more across our world. Nearly 1/3 of our population shows symptoms of the degradation. The child in this pod is my younger sister." Amy struggled to process what she was seeing. The briefings from Earth Command had mentioned nothing about a genetic disease affecting the Kylorians. Why keep this secret? Because my father and the Royal Council believe weakness should never be shown. Zylara answered, as if reading her thoughts. They fear Earth would terminate the alliance if they knew our vulnerability. But I believe differently. I believe humans are the key to our survival. How? Ellis asked, the circlet on his head beginning to glow faintly as if responding to the environment. Zylara turned to him. You specifically, Private Ellis. Your genetic structure contains something unique. Something our scientists identified in your preliminary scans before the ceremony. Something that might save us. She gestured to the pods. Your DNA has markers that could stabilize our genetic code. But my father would never approve of true genetic sharing between our species. He believes Kylorians must remain pure, despite the cost. A loud alarm suddenly blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed, and a mechanical voice announced, in both English and the musical Kylorian language, that there was an unauthorized access to the medical sector. "We have been discovered," Zilara said urgently. "We must leave now." She pressed a crystal on her wrist, and a hidden door opened in the wall. "Follow me quickly." They ran through the narrow passage as the sounds of guards approached from behind. The passage led upward through the Crystal City, through areas Amy had never seen before. Spaces that seemed older, more organic than the perfect geometry of the palace above. "Your leaders have been negotiating in bad faith," Zilara explained as they moved. "The technology we share is carefully controlled, limited enough to keep Earth dependent, but never enough to make you equals, your people. Suspect this, but have no proof. The Royal Council fears that if humans advance too quickly, you would no longer need the Alliance, and would abandon us to our fate." Amy felt a surge of anger at the deception. Both sides playing games while people suffered, but the anger was quickly replaced by a more urgent concern. "Where are we going?" "To the Resistance," Zilara replied. "Many Kylorians disagree with the King's approach. We believe in true cooperation, sharing between our species. The only path forward is, together as equals. But we must get Ellis to safety first. The information in that circlet contains everything. Everything your scientists would need to understand our condition, and everything our scientists would need to develop a cure using compatible, human genetic markers." They emerged in what appeared to be a storage area near the outer walls of the city. Ellis suddenly grabbed his head in pain, the circlet now glowing brightly. Zilara quickly moved to him, placing her hands on either side of the circlet. The glow dimmed. "They can track the circlet," she explained. "I have temporarily masked its signal, but we must keep moving." She led them to what looked like a small transport vessel disguised among cargo containers before they could reach it. A squad of royal guards appeared blocking their path. The leader stepped forward, his armor gleaming in the light of the 3 moons. "Princess Zilara, by order of the king, you are to return to the palace immediately. The humans are to be detained." Zilara straightened to her full height, her royal bearing evident in every line of her body. "I refuse, Captain. These humans are under my protection." The guard captain hesitated, clearly conflicted between loyalty to the king and respect for the princess. This gave Amy enough time to assess their options. The guards were armed with energy weapons but were positioned close together. A distraction might give them a chance. As if sensing her thoughts, Ellis suddenly collapsed to the ground, clutching his head. The circlet flared with brilliant blue light. The guards instinctively stepped back, raising their weapons. Amy took advantage of the moment, grabbing Ellis and pulling him toward the transport while Zilara moved to block the guards. "Go the princess," commanded Amy. "The coordinates are already in the transport system. The Resistance will meet you at the landing zone." "I will follow when I can," Amy wanted to argue, but there was no time. She half-dragged Ellis into the transport and activated the launch sequence. The vessel hummed to life, rising quickly into the night sky. As they gained altitude, Amy could see Zilara surrounded by guards below. The princess looked up once before being escorted away. Ellis groaned from the floor of the transport, the circlet still pulsing with energy. Amy helped him to a seat, checking him for injuries. "Are you all right?" she asked. "It's overwhelming," he replied, his voice strained. Too much information all at once. His eyes suddenly focused with strange clarity. The princess, she knew this would happen. The circlet, it contains more than just medical data. It's the location of all resistance cells across Kyloria, command codes, security protocols. He touched the circlet gently. "She gave me everything. Everything needed to overthrow her father." Amy stared at him in shock. "We were just supposed to be part of a knowledge exchange. How did we end up in the middle of an alien civil war?" Ellis managed a weak smile. "We were chosen. The coordinates in the navigation system led to the northern continent, where, according to the transport display, the temperature dropped dramatically. The landscape below changed from crystal forests to frozen tundra. The transport began its descent toward what appeared to be an empty field. But as they got closer, Amy could see structures hidden beneath camouflage shields. The transport-landed figures emerged from the hidden structures. Kylorians, but different from those at the palace. These wore simple clothing without the ornate decorations of the royal court. Their crystalline skin showed signs of the same degradation disease, but they moved with purpose and determination. A female Kylorian approached as Amy helped Ellis exit the transport. "I am Niara, sister of Xylara, leader of the Northern Resistance." She bowed slightly. "Welcome, humans. We have waited long for this day." Ellis nodded weakly, the circlet still glowing faintly. The princess said, "You can help me process the information in this device." Niara gestured toward the largest structure. "We have prepared a medical chamber for you. There our scientists can safely extract and interpret the data without causing you harm." She looked at Amy. "Lieutenant Walsh, you have questions. Many, I imagine, but know this. Our struggle is now your struggle as well. What happens here will determine the fate of both our worlds, inside the hidden base." Amy was surprised to see humans working alongside Kylorians, Earth scientists and engineers, moving freely among the aliens, sharing information and working on complex equipment. She recognized some of them from previous selection ceremonies. People who had supposedly returned to Earth, they chose to stay, Niara explained, seeing her confusion. "To join our cause, they believe, as we do that only together can our species survive." In the medical chamber, Ellis was connected to monitoring equipment, while Kylorian scientists worked to stabilize the circlet and slow the information transfer. One of them approached Amy. "Your friend is strong, but the data transfer is too rapid for human neural pathways. We must find a way to buffer the flow, or he risks permanent damage." Amy watched through a window as Ellis lay on the examination table surrounded by concerned scientists, both human and Kylorian. She felt a deep sense of responsibility for the young soldier. Even if they had stumbled into something much bigger than themselves, she was still his superior officer. "What happens now?" she asked, turning to Niara, the Kylorian resistance. Leader looked at her with those piercing alien eyes. "Now, Lieutenant Walsh, now we prepare for war." 3 days passed in the Northern Resistance base. Amy spent most of her time learning about the conflict that had been hidden from Earth authorities. She discovered that the genetic degradation had been affecting Kylorians for over a century, but had accelerated in recent decades. The royal family had kept it secret, believing it would make them appear weak to other species, especially humans. Ellis remained in the medical chamber as Kylorian scientists worked to safely extract the information from the circlet without causing permanent damage to his brain. Human scientists worked alongside them, bringing their understanding of human neurology to help with the process. On the 4th day, Amy was summoned to a meeting chamber deep within the base. Niara was there along with several other resistance leaders, both Kylorian and human. A human woman stepped forward, extending her hand in greeting. Dr. Olivia Morgan," she said with a warm smile. "I was selected 3 years ago, like your private Ellis." She gestured to the Kylorians around the table. "I chose to stay when I learned the truth. You betrayed Earth Command," Amy said. Unable to keep the accusation from her voice, Dr. Morgan shook her head. "I chose to help both species. The information I send back to Earth is still valuable but carefully curated with Niara's approval. The Resistance needs allies on both worlds, Lieutenant Walsh. The King would have us believe that humans are useful tools, nothing more, while convincing Earth that they need Kylorian technology to survive." Both sides, manipulated by fear and need, tried to process this information. Earth Command would consider this treason, but seeing humans and Kylorians working together as equals made her question everything she had been told. The door opened and Ellis entered, his face pale but his eyes clear. The circlet was gone, replaced by a small translator device similar to what the other humans wore. He smiled weakly at Amy. "They did it," he said. "The information is safe. I can remember parts of it, but the scientists have the complete data." Now Niara gestured for them to sit at the table. "We have made a breakthrough," she announced. "Thanks to the information Princess Xylara provided through Private Ellis, our scientists have developed a potential treatment for the genetic degradation. It requires human genetic material. specifically markers found in certain human populations, including mine. Ellis added. Nyara nodded. The princess chose. Well, your genetic structure contains several key markers that could stabilize our degrading DNA. But we need more than just treatment. We need a permanent solution. And for that, we need to overthrow the king. The display in the center of the table activated, showing a map of the royal city. Nyara pointed to several locations. The king has called an emergency council meeting in 7 days' time. All royal houses will attend. He plans to announce a new phase in the human alliance, increased technology sharing in exchange for human subjects for experimentation. He believes he can cure our people by harvesting compatible humans rather than true cooperation. Dr. Morgan leaned forward. Our spies in the palace confirm this. The king has grown desperate as his own symptoms worsen. He plans to lure more humans to Kyloria using promises of advanced technology, then use them in his experiments. Amy felt sick. Her team had been sent here under false pretenses. They were never meant to be diplomatic envoys but potential test subjects. How many other teams had suffered similar fates? The resistance plans to act during this council meeting. Nyara continued. Princess Zylara will challenge her father, publicly revealing his plans to the assembled houses. Many already suspect the truth, but fear speaking out. The princess commands great respect. If she stands against the king, others will follow. But she's being held prisoner. Ellis said. Nyara smiled. The princess only appears to be under guard. She has many loyal supporters within the palace, including members of the royal guard. The king's power has been waning for years as the disease spreads and his decisions grow more desperate. Our agents report she is restricted but not truly imprisoned. What do you need from us? Amy asked, still trying to process everything. Nyara and Dr. Morgan exchanged looks. We need you to contact your commander. Taylor. Morgan said, a secure channel has been prepared. She must know the truth before the king attempts to expand his program. Amy hesitated. Commander Taylor was strict about protocol, but she was also fair. Someone who valued human life above politics. If she knew the truth, would she help? Before she could respond, an alarm blared throughout the base. A Kylorian resistance fighter burst into the room. Royal forces have breached the outer perimeter, she reported. They followed the transport signal. Everyone moved at once. Nyara shouting orders as resistance members rushed to defensive positions. Dr. Morgan grabbed Amy and Ellis, pulling them toward a hidden exit. We have evacuation protocols, she explained. This base was always at risk of discovery. Amy pulled away. No, I can't leave these people. I need to help. Ellis nodded in agreement, standing beside her. These are our allies now. We fight with them. Dr. Morgan looked like she wanted to argue, but the sounds of energy weapons could already be heard from the upper levels. Go, she told the doctor. Get the research data to the secondary base. We will buy you time. As Morgan disappeared down the escape tunnel, Amy and Ellis followed Nyara to an armory, where resistance fighters were gearing up. Amy grabbed what appeared to be an energy rifle, checking its settings, while Ellis took a smaller sidearm. Nyara handed them communication devices. The royal forces will try to capture you alive, she said. The king needs Ellis for study and you, Lieutenant, for leverage against Earth Command. We cannot allow either of you to be taken. They moved through the base toward the upper levels, where royal forces had breached the defenses. The resistance fighters took positions behind barricades. The sound of energy weapons grew louder, along with the distinctive harmonic commands of the royal guard captain. Amy took position behind a barricade, next to a young Kylorian fighter whose crystalline skin showed advanced signs of degradation. The fighter noticed her look and smiled grimly. This is why we fight, human. For a future where my children might live without pain. The first wave of royal guards came into view, their armor gleaming as they advanced methodically down the corridor. Ellis crouched beside Amy, his hands steady. Despite everything, they had both been trained for combat, but fighting alongside alien rebels against other aliens was never covered in their training manuals. The battle was intense, energy blasts lighting up the crystalline walls in brilliant flashes. The resistance fighters used their knowledge of the base layout to good advantage, setting traps and using crossfire. To maximum effect, Amy found that her military training translated well to the alien weapons. The rifle fired pulses of energy that stunned, rather than killed, fitting the resistance philosophy, as they fell back to a more defensible position. Ellis suddenly grabbed Amy, pulling her into a side passage. Just as a section of ceiling collapsed where they had been standing, his eyes were unfocused for a moment. After effects of the circlet, he explained. I can sometimes see patterns, probabilities, just flashes. Their communication devices chimed with Nyara's voice. We are compromised. The king has sent his elite guard, fall back to evacuation point 3. All units acknowledge. Amy and Ellis followed the directions on their devices, moving through narrow maintenance tunnels that connected different sections of the base. They encountered other resistance fighters along the way, some injured being helped by their comrades, both humans and Kylorians working together to ensure everyone escaped. At evacuation point 3. A small fleet of transport vessels was being loaded with essential equipment and injured personnel. Nyara directed operations, her calm voice keeping panic at bay, despite the sounds of fighting growing closer. We have saved most of our research data and key personnel, she told Amy and Ellis as they arrived. But we have lost this base. The king will believe this. A significant victory. Where will you go? Amy asked. Nyara pointed to the largest transport. We have other bases. Other allies. The resistance has prepared for this day for many years. She handed Ellis a small crystal device. This contains a copy of the treatment protocol developed from your genetic markers. Guard it well. If we are separated, it must reach Princess Xylara. Massive explosion rocked the cavern. Debris rained down as royal forces breached the final defensive line. Nyara shouted for everyone to board the transports immediately. Amy and Ellis ran toward the nearest vessel, helping injured fighters aboard. As the last transport prepared to launch, a squad of elite royal guards burst into the cavern. Their leader stepped forward, removing his helmet to reveal a face remarkably similar to Princess Xylaris. Prince Zyron, brother to the princess, he announced, his voice carrying across the cavern. My father the king offers amnesty to any who surrender now, resist and face execution. Several resistance fighters hesitated, looking to Nyara for guidance. She stood tall, facing the prince without fear. Your father offers empty promises, brother. We have seen his true intentions in his secret laboratories. The prince seemed genuinely confused. What laboratories? Before Nyara could respond, another explosion, larger than before, shook the entire base. The cavern ceiling began to collapse. Ellis grabbed Amy, pulling her into the transport as chunks of crystal crashed down around them. The vessel launched just as the evacuation point collapsed behind them. The journey to Mars took several days. The Kylorian transport was designed for atmospheric flight, but had been modified for space travel, making the trip slower than standard Earth vessels. Amy spent much of the time helping tend to injured resistance fighters, while Ellis worked with Nyara to organize the data from the crystal device on. The third day, Nyara called them to the communications area of the vessel. A message from Princess Xylara, she explained, activating the display. The princess appeared, her image flickering slightly. The royal council moves against father, she said without preamble. He has ordered mass arrests of suspected resistance sympathizers, but many royal houses now openly question his judgment. Her expression remained neutral, but Amy could see tension in her eyes. Brother remains loyal to father, believing his lies. I fear what will happen when truth finally reaches him. Has the treatment data reached you? Nyara asked. Xylara nodded. Our scientists confirm the approaches. Promising. They have already begun synthesizing the compound, but father has ordered all human visitors confined to their quarters. Your Earth command is demanding explanations. I cannot delay the confrontation much longer. What about Commander Taylor and the rest of our team? Amy asked, stepping forward. Safe for now, the princess replied. But under guard. Father believes they know where you have gone. He grows increasingly paranoid. Her image flickered again. I must go. The council meets in 3 days. I will make my move then. The resistance must be ready. She looked directly at Ellisgard. The data human. It is more precious than you know. The transmission ended. Ellis turned the crystal device over in his hands. I still don't understand why the princess chose me specifically. There must be other humans with compatible genetic markers. Nyara hesitated before answering. There is more to your selection than merely genetics. Private Ellis. The princess has abilities beyond normal Kylorians. She can see potential futures, probability paths. She saw something in you, something beyond the immediate need. Ellis frowned. What does that mean? Before Nyara could respond, the vessel shuddered violently. Alarms blared throughout the ship. A resistance fighter rushed into the communications area. Royal pursuit vessel detected, she reported. They found us. How Nyara demanded we masked our engine signature and took a non-standard route. The fighter looked grim. Tracker inside the ship. Must be Ellis suddenly looked at the crystal device in his hand. The data crystal. It's not just storage. It's a beacon. He dropped it onto the table, backing away. Nyara picked up the device, examining it closely. Her expression darkened. A royal encryption matrix embedded in the crystalline structure. Very sophisticated, she looked at Ellis with new suspicion. Did you know? Emmy stepped between them. No. He didn't. The circlet transferred information to him, but not everything. Not technical details like that. The ship rocked, again as the royal vessel fired warning shots. The pilot announced over the intercom. They demand our surrender. Weapons locked on engine systems. Nyara stared at the crystal device for a long moment before making a decision. We split up, she announced. Half our forces take the emergency pods to Mars as planned. She turned to Amy and Ellis. You two come with me and a small team in the auxiliary craft. But the data Amy began is already transmitted to our allies, Nyara said. She crushed the crystal device, in her hand destroying the tracker. The king thinks this is our only copy. A deception within a deception. She smiled grimly. My sister plays a deep game. Within minutes they had transferred to a smaller vessel barely large enough for the 6 of them. Nyara, 2 resistance fighters, and the 3 humans, Amy, Ellis, and a wounded scientist named Dr. Harris. The main transport launched decoy pods in all directions, while their small craft slipped away using minimal power to avoid detection. Where are we going now? Ellis asked as they watched the royal vessel capture the main transport through the view screen. Earth, Nyara replied. Earth Command must learn the truth directly, and we need more of your genetic material to refine the treatment. The king will believe he has captured the data when he takes the main transport. By the time he realizes the deception, we will have already reached your leaders. The small craft adjusted course, heading toward Earth. The journey would take longer in the smaller vessel with limited fuel, but Nyara assured them they had enough supplies to make it. The 2 resistance fighters piloted while Dr. Harris worked on a secure communication protocol to contact Earth Command without alerting Kylorian monitoring systems. Amy found Ellis sitting alone in the small cargo area, staring at his hands. The after effects of the circlet, he explained when she joined him. I keep seeing flashes, images of possible futures. He looked up at her. Some clearer than others. I think I understand. Now why the princess chose me? What do you mean? He hesitated. My grandfather worked on the original contact team when the Kylorians first arrived 50 years ago. He was part of the medical exchange, one of the few humans allowed to study Kylorian physiology. His research was classified, buried in Earth Command archives, but something in his genetics, something he passed to my father and then to me, makes me compatible with Kylorian neural systems. The princess didn't just need my genetic markers for the treatment. She needed someone who could carry the information safely, someone whose mind could interface with their technology. Amy stared at him. That can't be coincidence. No, Ellis agreed. The princess has been planning this for decades. Tracking bloodlines, waiting for the right human to be born and reach adulthood. She arranged for me to be selected for the military program that led to our team. She manipulated events to bring me to Kyloria. Amy felt a chill run down her spine. How could she know you weren't even born when this started? Ellis tapped his temple. The circlet showed me fragments of her visions. Kylorians don't experience time the way we do. Some of them, especially the royal line, can see probability threads stretching into past and future. She saw me coming. Amy. She was waiting. Their conversation was interrupted when the ship suddenly dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Alarms blared as the engines shut down. Niara rushed into the cargo area, her face grim. "We have a problem." "What happened?" Amy asked, following her to the bridge energy signature detectors. Niara explained. Pointing to the display readings, "Earth has established a new defensive perimeter. Since you left, Lieutenant, much more sensitive than before. The system detected our Kylorian engine signature and triggered an automatic shutdown." Ellis joined them, studying the readings. "We're still 2 days from Earth at sublight speeds." Yara nodded. "And we will be detected long before then. Your military will consider us hostile." "Can we contact them?" Amy asked. "Explain our situation." The communications officer shook her head. "Too much Kylorian interference in this sector. All channels jammed since the king began his crackdown. Standard protocol they were, stranded in space with limited options. Earth defenses would consider them a threat, and the king's forces would eventually track them down." Amy tried to think of a solution, remembering her training at Earth Command Academy. There had been protocols for first contact scenarios, but nothing that covered human officers returning with alien rebels. Ellis suddenly straightened. "The lunar colony," he said. "The scientific outpost on the dark side of your moon. It's outside the main defense grid, but has communication equipment powerful enough to reach Earth Command. We can land there, explain our situation to the scientists. They would contact command on our behalf." Nyara considered this. "It would mean abandoning our vessel. The lunar colony has no docking facilities for Kylorian craft. We have escape pods." Ellis said, "We modify them for lunar landing parameters. We only need one to reach the surface." It was a desperate plan, but their options were limited. The pilots calculated a trajectory that would use minimal engine power to reach lunar orbit, then allow them to descend using the modified escape pod. The rest of the crew would remain with the vessel, keeping systems at minimal power to avoid detection. As they prepared the pod, Amy pulled Ellis aside. "Are you sure about this? If you're right about the princess choosing you specifically, then you're too valuable to risk on a dangerous landing." Ellis checked the seals on his emergency suit. "The princess may have chosen me, but I choose what to do with that choice. This is bigger than any of us, Amy. If we don't succeed, both our species face disaster." The modified pod was cramped with 3 occupants. Amy, Ellis, and Niara strapped in as the pilots initiated the launch sequence. The journey to lunar orbit took several hours, during which they maintained complete communications. Silence, running on minimal life support to avoid detection. The lunar surface appeared through the viewport, a desolate gray landscape far from the terraformed areas where most colonists lived. The dark side remained largely untouched, home only to scientific outposts and monitoring stations. Landing was rough, the pod skipping across the surface before coming to rest in a small crater. The impact knocked out their navigation system, but Ellis confirmed they were within walking distance of the outpost, roughly 10 kilometers across the airless surface. They donned their emergency suits designed for short-term exposure to space. Nyara required special modifications to accommodate her larger frame and crystalline physiology. The suits had limited oxygen supplies, giving them approximately 4 hours to reach the outpost before their air ran out. Amy stepped between Ellis and Commander Taylor. "Something isn't right," she said. "Why are you here alone, Commander? Where is the rest of our team?" Taylor's expression hardened. "Following orders, Lieutenant. Just like you should be." She pulled out an energy pistol similar to those used by the Kylorian Royal Guards. "The king has been very patient with Earth. He offered amnesty for your return." Nyara moved forward, her crystalline skin catching the harsh laboratory lights. "You serve the king," she accused. "No," Taylor replied. "I serve Earth. The Kylorian king has promised advanced propulsion technology in exchange for the return of Private Ellis and the genetic data. Our planet needs those technologies more than it needs." One soldier, Ellis, shook his head. "Commander, they've been lying to us. The king has been experimenting on humans trying to find genetic markers to save his people without sharing the truth. He doesn't want cooperation. He wants test subjects. Taylor's grip on the weapon tightened. You don't understand the bigger picture. The Kylorian alliance is all that stands between Earth and extinction. Our atmosphere continues to degrade despite all our efforts. We need their environmental technology. It doesn't have to be this way, Amy argued. The resistance wants true cooperation. A fair exchange. Princess Zylara believes both species can work together as equals. Taylor laughed bitterly. The princess. A naive idealist according to the king. She would destroy decades of careful diplomacy with her talk of equality. Her resistance is nothing but a terrorist organization. Yara moved slightly, trying to position herself for an attack, but Taylor noticed immediately, keeping the weapon trained on her. I wouldn't, she warned, Kylorian Royal. Guards are searching this facility as we speak. I only need to stall you until they arrive. Amy noticed Ellis closing his eyes momentarily, his face showing intense concentration, a side effect of the circlet's information transfer. She needed to keep. Taylor talking to buy time, Commander. You've seen the King's forces. They aren't here for peaceful negotiation. They want to capture Ellis and eliminate witnesses. Taylor hesitated. I was assured no harm would come to any Earth citizens. The agreement, specifically, protects our people. The King lies, Nyara said simply. He has always lied, even to his own children. Your Commander Taylor was simply easier to deceive than most. Desperate people believe what they need to believe. A noise from outside the laboratory drew their attention. Someone was trying to override the door lock. Taylor backed toward a secondary exit, keeping the weapon trained on them. It's too late. The guards have found us. Make this easy on yourselves. Ellis suddenly opened his eyes, looking directly at Taylor. Commander, he said softly. What did they promise you personally? Taylor blinked, caught off guard by the question. What a cure? Ellis continued. The King promised to cure your condition, didn't he? The classified medical file that got you pulled from active duty last year. The degenerative neural condition that Earth doctors can't treat. He saw your weakness and exploited it. Taylor's hand trembled slightly. How did you know about my condition? It's classified even. From my own team. The circlet showed me, Ellis replied. Probability threads, connections. The princess saw it all. She knew the King would find someone vulnerable in our command structure. She prepared me to understand. The door lock continued to beep as someone attempted to override it. The sound of metallic tools against the frame suggested the guards were preparing to force entry. You have a choice, Commander, Amy said. We all do. Right now. Taylor looked at the weapon in her hand, then at Ellis. The King promised a cure. She admitted he showed me the treatment already working on others like me. He said all he needed was Ellis and the genetic data. Those others were dying anyway. Nyara said. Her voice was gentle now. Understanding. They were test subjects, Commander, failed experiments. The King tells you what you need to hear. He has done the same to our people for generations. The laboratory door began to buckle under pressure from outside. Taylor made her decision quickly. There's another way out, she said, gesturing toward a maintenance shaft at the back of the lab. It leads to the emergency launch bay. I can give you a 10-minute head start. That's all. Amy nodded. Thank you, Commander. Taylor handed Amy her weapon. You'll need this more than I will. She looked at Ellis one last time. Was there ever really a cure for me? Ellis met her gaze. The resistance is developing treatments that could help you, Commander, but not the way the King promised. Not by sacrificing others. Taylor nodded, then moved to the laboratory door, preparing to meet the guards and explain the delay. Hurry, she urged. You don't have much time. Nyara led the way into the maintenance shaft, crawling through the narrow space designed for repair drones. Amy followed. With Ellis behind her, they moved as quickly as possible, hearing the sound of the laboratory door finally giving way behind them. Taylor's voice carried faintly as she confronted the guards, buying them precious minutes. The shaft emerged in a small, Emergency bay containing a single Earth shuttle designed for quick evacuations from the lunar surface. Nyara examined the controls while Amy secured the entrance they had used. "Can you fly this?" Ellis asked, looking at the unfamiliar design. Yara nodded. "The Resistance has studied Earth vessels extensively. I can manage the basic functions." She began the launch sequence as Amy and Ellis strapped into passenger seats. The shuttle hummed to life systems coming online one by one. Through the viewport, they could see Kylorian guards rushing into the bay, weapons raised. The shuttle's engines ignited, lifting the small vessel before they could reach it. The guards fired, but the energy weapons dissipated against the shuttle's shields designed to protect against solar radiation. They accelerated away from the lunar surface, following a trajectory that would take them to Earth. But as they cleared the moon's gravity, alarms blared through the shuttle. A royal cruiser moved to intercept, its weapon systems locking onto their position. "We can't outrun that," Amy said, recognizing the Kylorian vessel class from her military training. Nyara worked the controls, trying to squeeze more power from the engines. "Earth defense perimeter is still 8 minutes away," she reported. "We won't make it." Ellis unbuckled his harness, moving to the communication station. "There's one option left," he said, opening a channel to broadcast on all frequencies. "What are you doing?" Amy asked. "Telling the truth," Ellis replied. He activated the system. "This is Private Ryan Ellis of Earth United Forces, broadcasting an emergency message to all Earth Command frequencies and all civilian channels. The Kylorian Alliance is built on deception. The King has been experimenting on humans while hiding the true nature of his species' genetic degradation. The Resistance, led by Princess Zillara, seeks true cooperation between our species." The royal cruiser fired a warning shot across their bow. Ellis continued broadcasting undeterred. "I carry genetic markers that could save the Kylorian people, but the King wants to use humans as test subjects rather than partners. The Princess and the Resistance want to share the cure, freely working together as equals." Amy joined him at the console, adding her voice to the transmission. "This is Lieutenant Amy Walsh confirming Private Ellis's statement. We have witnessed the King's secret laboratories. We have seen humans and Kylorians working together in the Resistance. The Alliance, as it stands, is a lie." Nyara monitored the cruiser's approach. "They're preparing to disable our engines," she warned. "Another minute and we'll be in tractor range." Ellis continued broadcasting. "We request emergency intervention from Earth Defense Force and immediate communication with Earth Command leadership. Princess Zillara is preparing to challenge her father at the Royal Council. She needs our support." The shuttle shuddered as the cruiser fired again. Closer this time, the screen showed multiple Earth vessels responding to their broadcast, but they were still too far away to intervene in time. The royal cruiser moved into position to capture them. Suddenly, a new signal appeared on their sensors. A Kylorian vessel, but smaller than the cruiser. It moved at incredible speed, placing itself between the shuttle and the royal cruiser. A transmission came through, the voice unmistakable. "Princess Zillara, I heard your broadcast. Private Ellis. Most impressive." The royal cruiser hesitated, uncertain how to proceed, with the princess's vessel in the way. Zillara continued, "I have informed the Earth Defense Force of my father's deception. Many already suspected. The Royal Council has called for my father to step down. Pending investigation, I am here to escort you safely to Earth, where representatives from both our species will meet to discuss a new alliance." The royal cruiser powered down its weapon systems and began to withdraw. Another Kylorian voice came through the channel. "Princess Zillara, this is Captain Vex of the Royal Guard. Your father demands your return." The princess responded calmly. "Tell my father if he wishes to speak with me, he can do so at the Earth Embassy. I will be discussing the future of our species with those who truly wish to see us survive." Amy, Ellis, and Nyara watched in amazement as a small fleet of Earth defense vessels arrived, surrounding them in protective formation. A new voice came through the channel. "Lieutenant Walsh, Private Ellis. This is Admiral Chen of Earth Defense Force. We've received your transmission and Princess Zillara has provided corroborating evidence. You are to proceed to Earth Central Command immediately for debriefing As they changed course, following the princess's vessel toward Earth, Amy turned to Ellis. Did you know this would happen?